one of the phrases that Shukadeva Goswami spoke when discussing the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. Shukadeva Goswami is, first of all, Shukadeva Goswami is so expert relishing the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam that even his father and spiritual master, Vyasadeva, wanted to hear from him. And his grand spiritual master, Narada Muni, wanted to hear from him. Because Shukadeva Goswami was Shuka Mukhad, because from his mouth such nectar would come. They wanted to sit at his feet and hear him speak Srimad Bhagavatam. He was such a relisher of the topics that as he spoke the topics, they became sweeter. With his beak, the parrot has a beak. Shuka is name of means parrot. So he didn't parrot-like recite, but he very expertly relished the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, he understood the whole range of everything within the Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole range of everything within the Srimad Bhagavatam is the absolute truth in full. He knew the conclusion of those topics, and he knew how to relish those topics. It's said that when Shukadeva Goswami was narrating Srimad Bhagavatam, he purposefully did not mention Radharani's name. Because in other Puranas, where pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan are told, Radharani's name is mentioned explicitly. But Shukadeva Goswami didn't. Purposely he didn't, because he was such a relisher of the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam that even speaking the name Radharani, he would have been finished. He would have gone into such a state of ecstasy just to hear Radharani's name or speak Radharani's name that he would have been stunned in ecstasy and couldn't continue. So he didn't speak her name. He referred to her as the Aradhananam Sarvesham, indirectly as the best of all worshippers of Krishna. Aradhana. Her name means worship. Radha, Rani, the queen of all Radhas, the queen of all worshippers of Krishna. And it's not an exaggeration. There's in anticipation of Krishna Janmashtami, I'll make a recommendation for those of you that have Srimad Bhagavatam in your home. Read Canto 3, chapters 2 and 3. I'll say it again. Canto 3, chapters 2 and 3. Because that's Uddhava speaking about Krishna. And Uddhava, chapter 1, includes Uddhava being met by Vidura. Who is Vidura? He's one of the three brothers, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. Vidura went on pilgrimage. He left the royal palace before the Kurukshetra battle began, when Krishna was so badly insulted by Duryodhana. Vidura couldn't take it. Wisely. You don't hear blasphemy of Krishna and just up. And he spoke up so strongly condemning Duryodhana that in the public assembly, Duryodhana insulted him so badly Vidura didn't leave because he was insulted. The commentary explains he left because Krishna had been offended. And all of his best attempts to give sense to Duryodhana and his father Dhritarashtra was a failure. So he understood there's no service for me here. So he left. And when he left, he went on pilgrimage. And it was a really long pilgrimage. He didn't go for a couple of weeks, or a couple of months, or a couple of years. He went on pilgrimage of all the holy places throughout all the land for 34 years. Long pilgrimage. And in the course of that pilgrimage, in Canto 3, Chapter 1, Shukadev Goswami is asked by Maharaj Parikshit, when Vidura went on pilgrimage, it was said in earlier section of the Bhagavatam that he met Maitreya. And when he met Maitreya, Vidura was so elevated. And Maitreya was so elevated. It must have been a wonderful conversation. Can you expand on the topics that they discussed? So in response to that, it's pretty boring. In response to that, Shukadev Goswami describes the whole pilgrimage, including his meeting of all people in the middle of a forest in Vrindavan, Uddhava. So when Vidura saw Uddhava, he immediately thought of Krishna, because outside of Vrindavan, the most intimate associate of Krishna was Uddhava. Uddhava! How nice to see you here in the forest in Vrindavan. How are Krishna and Balaram? I mean, that's the first thought. And then inquired about all the other residents of Dwarka. And when he finished asking all his nice questions about how is everybody, we do this socially, commonly. How are all your family and your friends and your relatives? How's everything going? Uddhava was stunned. His thoughts of Krishna were so deep and profound and intense, he went into a trance. Just hearing Krishna's name and questions about Krishna, he pressed his Krishna button. And the Bhagavatam describes, he was with Krishna. His consciousness was merged in transcendence. He lost contact with the external world. His whole body was trembling. He was exhibiting symptoms of bhava, ecstasy. That's preliminary to the prema stage. That was Uddhava. But Uddhava was such a devotee, he wanted to serve Vidura. So he struggled to regain his external consciousness so he could answer his question. That's how strong is the mood of service of such an exalted devotee. And that was Uddhava, who his place of residence outside of Vrindavan. Goswami, even more so, a relisher of the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when he spoke of the gopis, he didn't speak of Radharani by name. And when he spoke of the cowherd boys, I'm speaking this way because we're going to speak about Krishna and the cowherd boys, his remark was, these boys, who can understand the great fortune? How many krita punya punja, there's a Sanskrit phrase that Shukadev Goswami spoke that Prabhupada repeat over and over, for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of punya, in order to have this great opportunity to be in the intimate association of Krishna all day long. Let's go back. This is 10th canto subject matter. Let's go back to the 4th canto subject matter, or the 3rd canto, where Kardama Muni, by his trance of meditation, Lord Vishnu came. Yes, Lord Vishnu, Kardama Muni. He's one of the sons of Brahma in the early parts of Satya Yuga. On the order of Brahma, to help qualify himself to produce good offspring, he went to the forest, engaged in meditation on Vishnu. His devotion was so strong that Vishnu appeared. And he described, like a rod, he fell again and again and again. He was in ecstasy, just seeing that form of Lord Vishnu, and offered beautiful prayers, and Lord Vishnu spoke with him. Or Dhruva, very famous portion of the Bhagavatam. Dhruva, by his trance of meditation upon Lord Vishnu, Vishnu came. Dhruva was stunned. He was in ecstasy. Just to see Lord Vishnu, he wanted to offer prayers. He's a little boy. Didn't know how to offer prayers. Lord Vishnu touched him with his conch shell on his forehead, so that Dhruva was then able to offer beautiful, beautiful, beautiful prayers. And then Vishnu disappeared. Now it's such a famous part of the Bhagavatam is Dhruva's practice and Dhruva's realization and Lord Vishnu's kindness to him, Narada's giving him the instruction, all of those elements. There's such a famous part, an often recited section of the Bhagavatam. But he saw Vishnu once, and then he disappeared. The cowherd boys were with Krishna all day long. And not Krishna in the office, but Krishna in the home. If you know what I mean. I plan to discuss this for your crowd tomorrow evening, because it'll be more new people to help understand the nature of Krishna's pastimes. I'm going to make this reference, but in simple language. Let's just take, the mayor of Naperville. So when the informality, there may be, mayor so-and-so, and you say, mayor so-and-so. And you make an appointment if you want to see the mayor, and you have to have some credential and da-da-da-da-da-da and procedure, and submit that to the secretary, okay, put you in the calendar, and then you go and meet the mayor. Generally you meet somebody in the mayor's office, not the mayor. But you may meet the mayor. But when the mayor goes home, it's so-and-so, and honey, and, all kinds of things. The mayor at his home. And he, goes to the golf course with his friends and whatever, people do. In the intimacy of friendship. The cowherd boys were in that relationship with Krishna. Intimacy of friendship. It's the same majestic Supreme Lord as came before Dhruva, or came before Kardama Muni, etc. That's the Lord of Vaikuntha, or the Lord of Shirodakshai Vishnu, the Lord of Svetadvip, where majesty is abundant. And the opulences are abundantly visible, predominating in the mood of reverential devotion before the Supreme Lord. That's, Mayor so-and-so. And then Krishna in Vrindavan is the same person. He has all potencies in full, unlimitedly. Like we heard yesterday evening when Pralambasura was going to take Balaram away and try to kidnap him, Krishna called out. He invested in Balaram, who is his direct expansion. Krishna's direct expansion is Balaram. Krishna called out, investing his potency in Balaram so he would remember that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not just a cowherd boy. The intimacy of love in the pastimes of Vrindavan are quite profound. Spiritual science of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan is quite profound. Because Krishna is the basis and support of everything. Everything, according to Bhagavad Gita, everything spiritual and everything material comes from Krishna. It rests in Krishna. And Krishna has the capacity to extend his potencies and withdraw his potencies at will, simply to enhance his pastimes. In fact, one of his principal potencies, Yogamaya potencies, this is what she does. She orchestrates Krishna's pastimes. It's a profound science. She intimately knows Krishna's desire, and she arranges the fulfillment of Krishna's desire. She has many sub-potencies. And it gets even more confidential. Purnamasi, in the pastimes of Krishna, she's Yogamaya. So she's in charge. No one will do anything without consulting Purnamasi. It's really profound. It's really profound. It's all resting on Krishna. But everything is happening in Vrindavan to bring the greatest happiness to Krishna. Now let's take the mayor of Naperville or someplace. He, most likely, mayors like Ishwara Bhav. They like to control stuff. Otherwise he'd be doing something else besides being a mayor. But if you give the mayor the choice, would you prefer being the mayor and have no family, or have a family and be the mayor? And not be the mayor? In other words, the greater happiness is with the intimacy of love than with the same for Krishna. His happiness, just like the pastime, I haven't even begun speaking about the pastime yet, but just to get the background so we have some appreciation of the intimacy of these cowherd boys with Krishna. When Lord Brahma, what's the position of Lord Brahma in our disciplic line? He's the originator of our disciplic line. Adi Kavi, in the language of the Bhagavatam. He's the most learned person in the universe. That's quite a title. He receives the Vedas and he manifests the Vedas within the universe. And otherwise we don't have access. Just like for Krishna Janmashtami, when the demigods were approached by Mother Earth in the form of a cow for relief of the overburden of demoniac kings, they went to Lord Brahma. Help! Lord Brahma went to the shore of the milk ocean, Svetadweep, and offered beautiful prayers, Purusha Sukta prayers specifically, to the Purusha. The Purusha Sukta means prayers to the Purusha, Lord Vishnu. When Vishnu replied, no one could hear amongst all the demigods except one, Brahma. And Lord Vishnu told Brahma, tell the demigods, very soon I'll appear on earth. Tell them. And before I appear on earth, they should take birth first in the Yadu dynasty, so they can assist me in my pastimes. Some of those demigods, according to 10th canto Bhagavatam, took birth as cowherd boys, so they could take part in the pastimes of Krishna and assist him in his pastimes. Some of them were in the Yadu dynasty. Some of them were cowherd boys. Brahma, the most learned person in the whole universe, when he was offering beautiful prayers to Krishna, very, very elevated prayers, often quoted verses, that chapter 14, Brahma's prayers, many verses quoted commonly. When he finished his prayers, Krishna was silent. He didn't say anything. And the reason he didn't say anything is he wanted to get back to having lunch with the cowherd boys. He wasn't so attracted to these exalted prayers. They were nice. He accepted the prayers. But his happiness was with the cowherd boys. So Brahma circumambulated him 3 times, went back to Brahmaloka. And Krishna went to have finished lunch with the cowherd boys. So Sukadeva Goswami speaks about them as, who can understand their good fortune? Dhruva was in ecstasy seeing the Lord once. The cowherd boys were with the Lord in his intimate feature all day long. Day after day after day after day, not just once, seeing him and having him touch their head with his conch shell. They were with him all day long, wrestling with him and climbing on his back and intimately, like children will play with one another. That play of children with one another is a reflection of that play of Krishna with the cowherd boys. This world is a reflection of the spiritual world. Only here, there's impurity. There's envy, competition, and so many defects. And there's no such defect. Fortunate. So, we're going to hear, as I said in the morning class, tomorrow morning we'll do the same, Krishna in Dwarka, or outside of Vrindavan. Because the mood is different in Vrindavan and outside of Vrindavan. Some of you are familiar with these dramas by Rupa Goswami about Krishna. Yes? Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him to make 2 dramas. He wanted to write a drama about Krishna's pastimes. Make 2 dramas, Krishna in Vrindavan, Krishna outside of Vrindavan. And when you read Canto 3, chapters 2 and 3, you'll find Krishna in Vrindavan, Krishna out of Vrindavan. Because the mood is different. So this evening is Krishna in Vrindavan. Very intimate. The intimacy, I'm spending so much time on this because people often misunderstand Krishna's pastimes. The pastimes of Vrindavan are so amazingly sweet. It may sound like, story, mythology, fairy tale, fanciful, not really substantial. You don't take it seriously, because how can God do these things? But He does these things in the intimacy of love, of the cowherd boys, the cows, and all of the other living entities in Vrindavan. The living entities in Vrindavan take birth as living entities in Vrindavan, as trees or birds or peacocks or whatever they are, because of their intimate desire to serve Krishna in an intimate way. And Krishna reciprocates with them. He reciprocates with every living entity, even us, we're not in Vrindavan, far from it. Material world. Krishna reciprocates perfectly with each of us. So what to speak of these residents of Vrindavan? But one of the 5 primary rasas is the rasa of friendship. Now, what's the rasa of Arjuna and Krishna? Friendship. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. Sakha. Arjuna is Krishna's dear sakha, his dear friend. That's where there's majesty. These are Krishna's sakhas, where there's no majesty. I mean, there's no mood of majestic love. It's just friendship. Pure friendship. In transcendence. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like this, which is the narration. It's not fanciful. It's love for Krishna in a very special way. The intimacy of love, where Krishna exhibits his power, his majesty, and the cowherd boys just think, oh, Krishna, you're so wonderful. That's it. Okay. So, we're speaking about this particular pastime because it's a pastime that honors Balaram. And in honoring Balaram, we discussed a little bit yesterday, there are two pastimes where Krishna in Vrindavan kills demons, but Balaram kills two. Krishna kills many, and specifically Balaram kills two. So yesterday we discussed the Pralambasura pastime, Balaram killing Pralambasura, and how that happened. Now this is Dhenukasura. Now these asuras, they're mystical beings or personalities. They have mystic power. They're asuras, they're demons that have undergone great austerity to develop mystic powers, and they use the mystic powers for demoniac purpose. So Dhenuka is one of them. He was an associate of Kamsa. He resided in a tal forest. Tal is a certain kind of fruit that grows from trees, like palm fruit, similar in English. And Dhenuka, it was a favorite place for very special tal fruits to be given to Kamsa. So they were there, Dhenuka and his other associates were there to keep everybody away, so the only Kamsa could have those fruits. Very, very special fruits. Not only in their taste, but even in their fragrance. The whole tal forest was so aromatic. So they hung out there, and anybody that came there, they would finish them. Because these are fruits that are only meant for Kamsa. So Balaram killed Dhenukasura, and we'll hear the pastime, but the pastime begins one morning with Krishna and Balaram entering the Vrindavan forest together. And of course, when they entered the Vrindavan forest, they weren't alone. There were thousands of cows, because that was the occupation of Nanda Maharaj, he's a cowherd, king of the cowherds. 9 lakhs of cows. That's a lot of cows. They have to eat a lot of grass every day. So they would take them in different places in Vrindavan for grazing. And of course, there were many cowherd boys. And the cowherd boys, they had their buffalo horns and different instruments that, in one sense, that was to herd the cows, but they were just playing. We heard that yesterday. The Supreme Personality of Godhead looked over the forest, which resounded with the charming sounds of bees, animals, and birds, and which was enhanced by a lake whose clear water resembled the minds of great souls, and a breeze carrying the fragrance of 100-petaled lotuses. Seeing all this, the Lord decided to enjoy the auspicious atmosphere. So here he is bugling on his horn, buffalo horn. And just hearing Krishna make that sound, the ears of the cows were perked up and drinking that sound, enjoying just being with Krishna. And as they entered deeper into the forest, there's relationship that Krishna has not only with the cows, but with the forest animals and birds. It's said that Krishna could speak any language. And the birds also have a language. And Krishna could speak bird language. Why not? He's the source of everything. So we would have conversation with the birds. He would enjoy sitting with and being in the company of the forest animals. And of course, the forest animals were happy to be in the company of Krishna, along with the cowherd boys and of course the cows and calves. One time in this day that Krishna's going out, he noticed the trees, and we're going to hear some verses of how Krishna was appreciating the mood of trees of us. Sometimes the cowherd boys, they would swing on swings and play. Sometimes they'd go to a well and call out bad names. And the echo would come back saying that bad name, and they would laugh. Sometimes Balaram would become tired. No, he doesn't become tired, it's a pastime. But he would become tired, so one cowherd boy would become the pillow for Balaram, and Krishna would massage his feet. And another cowherd boy would take some leaves and fan Balaram, just enjoying together. Sometimes Krishna would take rest, surrounded by the cowherd boys. Thus, desiring to enjoy pastimes, Lord Madhava, sounding his flute, surrounded by cowherd boys, were chanting his glories, and accompanied by Lord Baladev, kept the cows before him and entered the Vrindavan forest, which was full of flowers, rich with nourishment for the animals. The primeval those saw the stately trees. They also like to serve Krishna and Balaram. With their beautiful reddish buds and their heavy burden of fruits and flowers, they were bending down to touch his feet with the tips of their branches. So Krishna smiled to see their nice mood of service. And he spoke to Balaram. Oh, greatest of lords, just see how these trees are bowing their heads at your lotus, are worshipable by immortal demigods. The trees are offering you their fruits and flowers to eradicate the dark ignorance that has caused these births as trees. Oh, original personality, these bees must all be great sages and most elevated devotees of yours, for they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Though you have disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you, their worshipable Lord. O worshipable one, these peacocks are dancing before you out of joy. These does are pleasing you with their affectionate glances, just as the gopis do, and these cuckoos are honoring you with Vedic prayers. All these residents of the forest are most fortunate, and their behavior toward you certainly befits great souls receiving another great soul at home. This is Krishna appreciating the scene, how they wish to be in service too. The earth has now become most fortunate because you have touched her grass and bushes with your feet, and her trees and creepers with your fingernails, and because You have graced her rivers, mountains, birds, and animals with your merciful glances. But above all, you have embraced the young cowherd women between your two arms, a favor hankered after by the goddess of fortune herself. Very nice painting by Vishnu Das, Krishna and Balaram. Sometimes with a voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds, Krishna would call out with great affection the names of the animals who had wandered far from the herd, thus enchanting the cows and the cowherd boys. Pretty small cows, huh? Big peacock and small cows. Sometimes Krishna would cry out in imitation of birds, such as the chakoras, craunchas, chakravas, bhadravajas, bharadvajas. What kind of bird is that? Anybody know? And peacocks. And sometimes he would run away with the smaller animals in mock fear of lions and tigers. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head upon the lap of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. Very nice BBT painting of this scene. Fanning Balaram, singing the glories of Balaram, playing upon the conch. Balaram is getting some rest. Krishna massaging his feet. Sometimes Lord Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon the bed, a bed made of soft twigs and buds, and using the lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow. This is a nice painting of Balaram. We know that because he's carrying his plow. Some of the cowherd boys who were great souls would then massage Krishna's lotus feet, and others, qualified by being freed of all sin, would expertly fan the Supreme Lord. So these are his daytime pastimes. Now it's about 11 o'clock in the morning, and the cowherd boys and close friends of Krishna began speaking. Oh, Rama, Rama, mighty armed one. Oh, Krishna, destroyer of the miscreants. Not far from here is a very great forest filled with rows of palm trees or tal trees. Hearing the words of their dear companions, Krishna and Balaram laughed, and desiring to please them, set off to the Talavan forest surrounded by their cowherd boyfriends. So they were saying there's this, in this Tal forest, there's fantastic fruits, but there's a problem. There's demons that are protecting. We are afraid to go in and get some fruits. Can you get some fruits for us? In that Talavan forest, many fruits are falling from the trees, and many are already lying on the ground, but all the fruits are being guarded by the evil Dhenuka. So they're describing Dhenuka. They're rubbing their stomach, saying, we would like some of those fruits. The demon Dhenuka has eaten men alive, and therefore all people and animals are terrified of going to the Tal forest. Oh, killer of the enemy, even the birds are afraid to fly there. Oh, Krishna, please get those fruits for us. Our minds are trapped near Balaram. Our desires to have those fruits is very great. If you think it's a good idea, let's go. So how they go is a little interesting, climbing trees and walking along the branches. balancing on fallen tree trunks. But there they go, heading for the tall forest. Lord Balaram entered the tall forest first. Then, with his 2 mighty arms, he began forcefully shaking the trees with all the power of a maddened elephant, causing the tall fruits to fall to the ground. So there's the boys collecting the tall fruits. But, hearing the sound of the falling fruits, the ass demon Dhenuka ran forward to attack, making the earth and trees tremble. So as it shows, he went charging directly towards Balaram, and he tried kicking Balaram in the chest with his hind legs. Asses do that. So Balaram grabbed his hind legs and started twirling him around. The powerful demon rushed upon Lord Baladev and sharply struck the Lord's chest with the hooves of his hind legs. Then Dhenuka began to run about, braying loudly. First he kicked him. Moving again toward Lord Balaram, O king, the furious ass situated himself with his back towards the Lord, then screaming in rage, the demon hurled his hind legs at him. And there's Balaram grabbing his hind legs and twirling him around. Lord Balaram seized Dhenuka by his hooves, whirled him about with one hand, and threw him into the top of a palm tree. The violent weep killed the demon. When Lord Balaram threw the dead body of Dhenuka into the tallest palm tree in the forest, and when the dead demon landed in the treetop, the tree began shaking. The great palm tree, causing a tree by its side also to shake, broke under the weight of the demon. The neighboring tree caused yet another tree to shake, and this one struck yet another tree which also began shaking. In this way, many trees in the forest shook and broke. Because of Lord Balaram's pastime of throwing the body of the ass demon into the top of the tallest palm tree, all the trees began shaking and striking against one another as if blown about by powerful winds. So it wasn't just Dhenuka, he had some buddies. There's Dhenuka up there on top of one of the tall trees. There's some of the tall fruits that fell. The other ass demons, close friends of Dhenukasura, were enraged upon seeing his death, and thus they all immediately ran to attack Krishna and Balaram. So there's, I guess, Dhenuka up there. But the others, they also came running, charging like this, trying to kick Krishna and Balaram. And one by one, they were twirled around and thrown up into the treetops, thus making the tall fruits available for the cowherd boys. So a number of paintings of the same scene. O king, as the demons attacked, Krishna and Balaram easily seized them one after another by their hind legs and threw them all into the tops of the palm trees. This one's throwing against the palm tree, got smashed. The earth then appeared beautifully covered with heaps of fruits and with the dead bodies of the demons, which were entangled in the broken tops of the palm trees. Indeed, the earth shone like the sky decorated with clouds. The earth then appeared beautifully covered with heaps of fruits and with the dead bodies of the demons. Whoops, we read that. Hearing of this magnificent feat of the two brothers, the demigods and other elevated living beings rained down flowers and offered music and prayers in glorification. There's a lot of upside down ash demons at the tops of trees here. People now felt free to return to the forest where Dhenuka had been killed, and without fear they ate the fruits of the palm trees. Also, the cows could now graze freely upon the grass there. And then Krishna and Balaram returned back to Vrindavan. With their bee-like eyes, the women of Vrindavan drank the honey of the beautiful face of Lord Mukunda, and thus they gave up the distress they had felt during the day because of separation from him. The young Vrindavan ladies, that's these girls, the one with the crown here, that's Radharani, but they're all having great happiness just seeing Krishna again. The young Vrindavan ladies cast sidelong glances at the Lord, glances filled with bashfulness, laughter, and submission. And Sri Krishna, completely accepting these glances as a proper offering back to the cowherd village. So he's returning from the forest back to the village, the cows following behind him, of course the cowherd boys in constant association with Krishna, and Krishna is delighting the hearts of the young girls who are seeing Krishna return. Lord Krishna's hair, powdered with the dust raised by the cows, was decorated with a peacock feather and forest flowers. The Lord glanced charmingly and smiled beautifully, playing upon his flute, while his companions chanted his glories. The gopis all together came forward to meet him, and their eyes very eager to see him. My dear Parikshit, this is Shukadev narrating. That Lord Balaram killed Dhenukasura is not such a wonderful thing, considering that he is the unlimited personality of Godhead, the controller of the entire universe. Indeed, the entire cosmic cosmos rests upon him, just as a woven cloth rests upon its own horizontal and vertical threads. This same language is used in describing Lord Brahma's creation, the Otam and Protam. So a cloth is made just of threads that are going this way and threads that are going that way. That's what cloth is. As a cloth is resting on those two directional threads, the whole cosmic manifestation is resting upon Lord Balaram. Then, lotus-eyed Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories are most pious to hear and chant, returned home to Braja with his elder brother Balaram. Along the way, the cowherd boys, his faithful followers, chanted his glories, having a nice time. But it's not just having a nice time, it's transcendental pastimes with the personality of Godhead. After dining sumptuously on the delicious food given them by their mothers, and being pampered in various ways, the two brothers lay down upon their excellent beds and happily went to sleep in the village of Braja. So, concluding message, we heard yesterday evening that when Balaram kills these two demons, it indicates, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how Balaram, the original spiritual master, gives help to the devotee of Krishna by spiritual strength to overcome these difficulties in the path of spiritual life. So this difficulty is gross materialistic intelligence, or its converse, the result is ignorance of spiritual knowledge. From Bhagavad Gita, the Mayaya Parita Jnana portion of this verse, those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. Dhenukasura represents that. And Balaram will help us, something we need to pay attention to in our spiritual life. But the accumulation of knowledge that's by ascending process that we become so attached to that it obscures our ability to understand Krishna and be engaged properly in his loving service. There's a description of who Dhenukasura was in his previous life. It's not found in the Bhagavatam, it's in another Vaishnava scripture. But in his previous life, he was the son of Bali. Bali was the son of Virochana, and Virochana was the son of Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj's son was Virochana, Virochana's son was Bali, and Bali's son was previously the name Sahasika. So Sahasika one time was on Gandhamana mountain enjoying romantic activities with some ladies. And when he was busy like that, not far away was Durvasa Muni, engaged in meditation, and Durvasa Muni heard this noise of Sahasika. So he came before Sahasika and let him have it. You fool, you ass-like person, become an ass, O demon, after 400,000 years. In the transcendental circle of Mathura, in the sacred forest of Talavan, you will attain liberation by Lord Balaram's hand. Narada Muni is giving this history because the Supreme Lord had given a promise to Prahlad that your descendants will not be killed by me. Krishna arranged for Dhenuka to be killed by Balaram. Clever, huh? So this tendency to feel pride in knowledge that's acquired by speculative strength. In this world, people may appreciate them here and there, but it's an impediment on the path of spiritual life. And their intelligence, according to the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, their intelligence becomes misguided. Here's the text. The mudhas are those who are grossly foolish, like hardworking beasts of burden. This is Bhaktisiddhanta's language. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, and so do not want to part with them for the Supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. The humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard, day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bunch of grass, sleeping for a while under fear of being beaten by his master, and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. So this mentality, foolish mentality, is Dhenuka, the Mayaya Pratigyana mentality. So Balaram is very kind. He relieves the devotee from that obstacle. But as we mentioned yesterday, and I'll end with this, it's something, particularly these two demons, or the obstacles represented by these two demons, is something devotee's effort in doing Balaram will give the strength, but the devotees need to make special effort to not yield to this ass-like mentality, the beast of burden mentality, or the Mayaya Pratigyana mentality, being overly attached in this way. Okay, so Balaram's pastime of killing Dhenukasura. Any discussion? Questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the beginning of the lecture you mentioned that Sukadeva Goswami didn't want to mention Radharani's name.
Yeah.
And I'm not clear about the first half where Sukadeva Goswami was born and he's described as a Brahmagnya. I mean, he knew Brahman. So at what point he achieved the prema stage from a Brahman realization? Is it just by hearing Bhagavatam that he developed the love?
Yes, exactly.
So and
he became attracted, as Bhagavatam says specifically, he became attracted by the beautiful pastimes of Ajita, the form and pastimes of Ajita, Krishna.
And sometimes we hear the pastime where he heard Bhagavatam from, he was a parrot, and
that's another
one.
It's not within the Bhagavatam. It's a story that's often heard, but it's not something our acharyas regularly draw our attention to. So who he was in his previous life is an interesting subject.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I feel like, partly because of feeling of insecurity. Maharaj.
Giving up what?
Like insecurity. Like
insecurity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not having full shelter. Achieving the full shelter. So how do I take the first step at least towards that? Getting that shelter, feeling of shelter of Krishna.
My answer is very simple, but maybe, too simple. It's, the beginning is the hearing process. You're a father. You have a child. And your child doesn't have a clue about what adult life is like. But as a father, you have an idea of what adult life is like. So you encourage, according to the capacity of your child, to prepare themselves for adult life, even though they don't know what it's like. But because of their trust in you and their affection for you, they'll follow. So you're helping them to prepare for a life of responsibility where they'll need skills and tools and understandings and so forth. So you're kindly doing that. So similarly, the great souls, they want to prepare us similarly for a life of eternal life of loving service unto Krishna. So they provide that understanding to us through sound. So we can't relate to that. It's too high. We're way down here, like the Nile desert. So by sound, we can get some indication of at least, the path to follow, and with the confidence in those who are great souls, we follow that path because it's going to lead us to the kingdom of God and a life of pure devotion to Krishna, that place of shelter. So it starts with sound. That was your question. How does it begin? And you continue cultivating through sound. And that sound vibration is more than just like taking a bath or shower just by standing in the shower. You don't just stand there in the shower. You know. So we take the message that we hear and we apply it to our best understanding. We're not going to apply it perfectly because we don't have correct understanding. But sincerely, to the best of our ability, we apply. And then that's taking further shelter. Starts with the hearing and then the application of the hearing. And then some cleansing takes place, and then some realization, some feelings that, wow, a happiness that's different than the happiness of sense gratification and blind materialistic life. So it encourages us to go the next step, like that. So the shelter is through the hearing process, and the hearing and the application of the hearing, and acting in the relationships with those who we're hearing from, like your children and you. Then you can help them as they have the capacity to understand more. You're careful not to, overload, but according to their capacity, and little by little. So teachers are like that too. And they're making that sound vibration appropriate for the receiver. Yeah?
Thank you, Manu.
That's how the shelter comes. Yes. You have to come take the microphone, I think.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, the question or confusion I have is, when you said in the beginning of the lecture, Punya.
When I said what?
In the beginning of the lecture, you mentioned the cowherd boys, whoever is associating with the Lord, they did a lot of Punya.
Yeah, but it's spiritual punya. They didn't just, open hospitals and schools.
Okay. That's my question. Generally,
I anticipated.
Punya, because we generally say punya means it's a good karma.
But
we don't want that.
there is Bhaktivinoda Thakur addresses this question. There's Bhog, Anmukhi Sukriti, Moksh Anmukhi Sukriti, and Bhakti Anmukhi Sukriti, and they're different categories. People that do Punya or Bhog Anmukhi Sukriti, they do something on this plane that makes life on this plane more comfortable for people on this plane. The classic Punya is digging wells and planting trees by the side of the road. Classic Vedic Punya. And then there's benefits for material pleasure that come from that kind. Then there's another category, and there's one more after that. Another category is Mukti, Moksh, Anmukhi, Sukriti or Punya. And that's study of Vedanta. That's an activity that assists. And then there's activities, the third category, the activities that assist one in bhakti. Offering a flower to Krishna with love and devotion, etc. Coming and regularly seeing the deity form of Krishna, making that impression. I just was hearing it in a Prabhupada speaking on this in a Bhagavatam class. Makes an impression, and then one can carry that impression of the deity form with one throughout the day, even one is doing other activity. So that kind of sukriti is bhakti sukriti, or bhakti punya. It's the same kind of language is there in the Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2. By regularly hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, one accrues spiritual merit. The word that's used is same, piety, punya, but it's spiritual punya, which is different than the other one. It's a different category. Does that help?
Thank you, Maharaj. One more question, Maharaj.
Sure.
When you were answering that, you said moksha. Remembered one person asked me the question. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, moksha ishyami masucha. Why Krishna stopped at moksha? And most of Krishna devotees, they don't want moksha. Why Krishna says moksha? Why he did not say bhakti? Why Krishna has to stop at moksha? Why is promising moksha only?
Okay.
By surrendering to him. So I could not answer, Maharaj.
Here's the answer. Go over it in detail. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, you know who that is? Yes, okay. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is taking exception to Vyasadev's language, where he says, Mukti Pade Swadaya Bhak. It should have said Bhakti Pade Swadaya Bhak. Because when people hear the word mukti, they think of sayuja, merging. So Vyasadeva made a mistake. He shouldn't have said mukti. He should have said bhakti. And Lord Chaitanya said, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, this is amazing. You used to be such an impersonalist, and your whole thing was mukti. And now you're anti-mukti party, and you're the bhakti party. This is most amazing. But, Vyasa didn't make a mistake, because mukti is only possible by taking shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. So one who takes shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, they'll naturally receive mukti because they're receiving bhakti. They'll naturally receive mukti. So he didn't say something wrong. It indicates indirectly Krishna's lotus feet. So it's okay. So same. Moksha yashyami masuchaha is speaking of the neutralizing of reactions to sins. Because the first part of the verse is sarva dharmam paridyaja. Now if you're feeling that by your paridyaja, your dharma, if you're rejecting dharma, you're going to get a sinful reaction. Because you're not performing your dharma. And therefore you get a sinful reaction. And therefore, the second half of the verse is, if you think like that, for your neglecting the subordinate dharma, if you do the primary dharma, the paradharma. Because the advocacy is paradharma. That's the first part of the verse. And for so doing, there won't be a sinful reaction. You'll be released from that worry, masuchaha. Don't worry. Because you'll be released from the reaction. Why? Because you haven't taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. It's the same logic of explanation as Lord Chaitanya gave to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Look it up. You'll be able to find that section in Chaitanya Charitamrita, or should I tell you where to look? I'd have to look in my computer.
I'll find out, Maharaj.
Okay. So it's the same logic. And then you can share with this person, whoever asked you the question. Here's what Lord Chaitanya said to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya on this topic. But what I've just shared is the essence. If I'm going to say it again, persons who are religious, they're very concerned about duty. They must be concerned about duty. Now Krishna is saying, don't worry about your duty, just do one thing, just surrender to me. And if you do this one thing, just surrender to me, you're not going to get a reaction for non-performance of duty. Moksha yashyami. You're on the liberated platform. There's another verse where Krishna says it's essentially the same thing, only backwards. Can't remember the verse. But one has become free from all sinful action, is engaged in pious activity, such a person is situated in devotional service. What's that verse? Te dvanva moha nirbhukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. Yesham tvantagatam papam, those who in this life have become free from sinful activity, etc. So, you're freed from sinful activity even if there's neglect of Dharma, if the purpose for which you're doing what you're doing is taking shelter of Krishna. You with me? That's what 1866 says. And that's what this Yesham Tantakatam Papam verse also says. There won't be sinful reaction. Don't engage in sinful activity. Jananam punya karmanam. Okay? Look that verse up too. Okay. Stoka Krishna. Yeah. Can you turn the button on?
Could you please expand on the ascending process of knowledge that you talked about? How much should we pursue that in our lives?
If it's useful for Krishna's service, we pursue that. Go to college, so that there's some opportunity for service to Krishna. And it's a short occupational duty as part of service to Krishna. It's not, that's not all out of our eggs in one basket. It's useful for the purpose of service to Krishna. So whatever that might be, someone may be, whatever they may be, whatever their aim for life might be. So that's an ascending process. It's not directly, descending knowledge of how to understand the soul and the liberation of the soul. That's descending knowledge. So I may learn how to become a concert pianist or something. Then I can offer that in service to Krishna. Okay? Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.